Hi, I'm Jose Hernandez of the STS-128 crew, and you're watching NASA TV.
Good morning, Discovery, and good morning to you today, Jose.
Buenos dias, Shannon. A special good morning to everybody who's listening to us. Want to give a special thanks to my wife, my family, and friends who suggested this song, and I'm just happy to be able to share my experiences over my Twitter account. To special thanks to those who are following along. And just happy to be here and continuing on with our mission, Shannon.
And we're happy to be working with you today, Jose.
With that, the combined crews of Space Shuttle Discovery and the International Space Station now awake at 12:30 p.m. Central Time. That song, Ma Tierra, by Gloria Estefan, played for Jose Hernandez. The crew will now have a couple of hours of personal and off-duty time to prepare for their start of their crew day, which will be focused on the transfer of the MPLM, or the Multi-Purpose Logistics Module. Here in the shuttle flight control room, a handover is just beginning between the Orbit 3 and Orbit 1 teams. Gary Horlacher, who's shown here in the center of your view in the blue long-sleeve shirt, is preparing to hand over to Anthony Sacacci, the lead shuttle flight director for this mission. Likewise, on the Capcom console, astronaut Shannon Lucid is handing over to Chris Ferguson, who will work with the crew in the first half of their crew day, a day that'll be busy with joint operations with the space station crew. Likewise, their space station counterparts in the International Space Station Flight Control Room are working closely as we prepare for the day's activities, primarily the unberthing and relocation of the Multi-Purpose Logistics Module to its temporary location on the space station for its unloading of 15,000 pounds of supplies and equipment.
Houston Station on the Big Loop for robotics. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah, just let you know, we are just putting procedure 1.210, the berth MPLM grapple in work. Okay, sounds good, Mike.
This image showing the configuration of what is called the Common Berthing Centerline Camera Mechanism, or CBCS as it is known. That Common Berthing Mechanism camera system is used as a visual tool by the robotics operators at the robotics workstation in the Destiny Laboratory to ensure that they have a precise alignment between the berthing latching mechanism at the forward end of Leonardo and the berthing mechanism on the Harmony Common Berthing Mechanism. Again, the Canadarm2 will be maneuvered over to grapple that grapple fixture at the top of Leonardo and to lift it out of Discovery's cargo bay and maneuver it over a very short distance so that it can be berthed on the nadir or earthward facing common berthing mechanism of Harmony.
The upcoming PMC.
The station's robotic arm, the Canadarm2, reached over and has grappled the grapple fixture on the top of the Leonardo Multi-Purpose Logistics Module. That grapple occurred at 3:08 p.m. Central Time under the guidance of pilot Kevin Ford of Discovery and station flight engineer Mike Barrett, who are working at the robotics workstation in the Destiny Laboratory of the International Space Station. The mechanical systems officer now reports that all of the payload retention latches have been released. So Leonardo is in the grasp now solely of the Canadarm2, with Kevin Ford and Mike Barrett at the controls at the robotics workstation as they prepare to lift Leonardo vertically out of the payload bay. Very tight clearances here, so it will be a slow and methodical operation.
You've got to go for MPLM unberth. Station copies. Go for MPLM on berth.
Good view of the Leonardo multipurpose logistics module at the low hover position, firmly in the grasp of the Canadarm2, being operated from the Destiny Laboratory by Discovery pilot Kevin Ford and Expedition 20 flight engineer Mike Barrett. You can see at the top of your screen, at the very rear of Discovery's cargo bay, that is the brand new ammonia tank assembly on a truss carrier. That is the ammonia tank assembly that will be removed from that pallet during the second of the 3 spacewalks to be conducted on this mission. The robotics officer in the station flight control room reports that the Leonardo multipurpose logistics module is now at the pre-install position, basically at the correct height to match the alignment of its common berthing mechanism. Basically, you're looking at that right at the forward end of Leonardo to the comparable androgynous common berthing mechanism on the Harmony connecting node.
Sounds great. Thanks for the help.
Anytime. Have a good day.
The robotics systems officer in the ISS flight control room reports that Leonardo is now being moved to the ready to latch position. Once Leonardo has been placed into the capture position with the 2 common berthing mechanisms aligned, the commanding that initiates the bolting of Leonardo in place involves 4 gangs of 4 bolts apiece, a total of 16 bolts. Once we reach the call out from the station flight control room that we have second stage capture, that will indicate that Leonardo is firmly mated to the Harmony connecting node. This view from the common berthing mechanism camera system is providing a visual cue for Kevin Ford and Mike Barrett.
Houston Station on the big loop for robotics. We see ourselves with 4 good RTLs who are giving a go for the first stage capture to the CBM operator.
Copy and concur from Houston.
Mike Barrett indicating that with 4 good ready-to-latch indicators, Tim Copra now will begin to work along with Christer Fugelsang in sending commands to begin the bolt loading, or the beginning the initiation to have the bolts, the 16 bolts and the circumference around the common berthing mechanism begin to latch correctly. Fully loaded with almost 8 tons of cargo, Leonardo in the process of being bolted into place. And a good first stage capture now reported by the mechanical systems officer in the International Space Station Flight Control Room. The commands to bolt Leonardo in place being sent by Tim Copra and Christer Fugelsang, while the robotic arm continues to hold firmly onto Leonardo's grapple fixture under the control of Kevin Ford and Mike Barrett. Second stage capture continues. The bolt driving now in progress. And the Canadarm2 has now released its hold on the Leonardo multipurpose logistics module and is in the process of backing away. Now clear of the Leonardo cargo module, the Canadarm2 is now in the correct configuration, having completed its work for the day. It will be reoriented to support tomorrow afternoon's spacewalk activities by Danny Olivas and Nicole Stott. Discovery in the International Space Station, flying 225 miles over the Mediterranean, just south of Barcelona, Spain. A good view of the Canadarm2 being backed away from the vicinity of the Leonardo multi-purpose logistics module high over the payload bay of the shuttle Discovery, as it is being repositioned for work in support of the spacewalks that get underway tomorrow afternoon. The arm has been under the operation today at the robotics workstation of the Destiny Laboratory by Discovery pilot Kevin Ford and station flight engineer Mike Barrett. There's a good view of the Japanese Kibo Laboratory and the new exposed facility that was mated to the front porch of Kibo as a platform for scientific experiments to be installed and removed at various periods of time. In the Japanese Kibo Laboratory, Nicole Stott familiarizing herself with some of the new equipment that she'll be operating over the course of the next 3 months as a flight engineer on the International Space Station, wearing a t-shirt of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, where she received a Bachelor of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering in 1987.
This is Mission Control Houston. As you can see inside the Quest airlock at this time, Nicole Stott there on the right, Danny Olivas on the left, getting ready to camp out inside the Quest airlock overnight. This is being done in preparation for their spacewalk, the first of the mission. The 2 masks that you see, they're going to put on here for a few minutes and conduct what's called the pre-breathe exercise. This is where they breathe an enriched mixture of oxygen. Here very shortly, the Quest airlock will be taken down to 10.2 PSI, a lower pressure than is typically held at. All of this being done to acclimate both of their bodies to a lower pressure. It helps them avoid what divers typically call the bends. It basically just gets rid of all the nitrogen out of their bloodstreams. This is a standard process that is done before any sort of spacewalk is conducted on board the station. So both Olivas and Stott will spend the night inside the Quest airlock. In the morning, whenever both crews wake up, they will take a quick hygiene and breakfast break. And then this 6.5-hour spacewalk will get kicked off at 4:49 p.m. Central Time. This live video from onboard Shuttle Discovery's payload bay, passing over into the nighttime. But if you look very closely at the top half of your screen, you can see Hurricane Jimena that is out in the Pacific Ocean. You can see the eye of that hurricane there at the top right quadrant of your screen. This hurricane's currently in Category 5. And the International Space Station and Space Shuttle Discovery currently passing 212 miles directly above it.
We're on the flight deck of Discovery and just finishing up flight day 4, first full dock day aboard the space station. And woke up this morning and Mike Barrett from the expedition crew joined me for MPLM installation. Trained us in Houston for a long time with the great instruction teams back there and all the great training, all the engineering that's going into this multi-purpose logistics module, Leonardo. Took it out of the payload bay with the Canadarm2, with a big robotic arm. Some views out one of the small bottom windows as the MPLM comes up to docking. It's holding about 15,000 pounds of goods to stow away into the space station. Later in the day when we got a chance to open it, the station crew was just wondering where it's all going to go because there is just a great deal of goods in there, there are racks in there, there's science in there, and there are just a lot of things that we need to sustain science and living on space station. It's a nice view. You see sunrise back there. Just in the nighttime, we use a lot of illuminators and everything to make the robotics work. You can see the grapple fixture of the space station arm with the MPLM just above the payload bay. In the meantime, a lot of work being done around various places in the space shuttle and space station simultaneously. Here's CJ with a full water container. We make water as a product of generating electricity. As we combine our hydrogen and oxygen together, we get electrons and we get water. And the space station is more than happy to take our excess water, so we fill bags for them and transfer it over there. This is after some maneuvering of this Leonardo logistics module. We have it up now just below the nadir port on the space station and just ready for the install. So Krister and Frank were the ones setting up the MPLM for ingress there, and they're getting ready to do some work on the hatch. Tim Copra, who will be coming home with us on Discovery, also helping out. Just a little interior view of the space station there. We got 2 robotics workstations. The one called the cupola behind us there, and then the main lab robotic workstation that Mike Barrett and I are working on to get all the work done. Every once in a while we go take a look out the windows to see what's really going on outside. Otherwise we use multiple camera views and lots of other tools to help us see what's going on. The view right in front of me is a camera looking out the nadir port of node 2 as the CBM comes right up to it. Or the MPLM comes right up to it, excuse me. Just a pleasure to work with the real arm. It works just like the simulations back at the Johnson Space Center, and everything the instructors taught us was dead on.
Here's Nicole and myself working to transfer an experiment. It's called MDS. It came up on the shuttle, and we're going to leave it on the space station for just some long-term work. It's a powered payload, so there were some things we had to do as far as taking power off. Once that was done, Nicole used a locker tool that we have to unbolt it from its place there, and then we would take it over to the station. So it's all unbolted, unpowered, and it takes 2 people to take something this size through the different hatches that we have to get to station. So we are going up through the airlock hatch where we're connected to the station, and you'll see how things open up a little bit once we get onto ISS. It went into the JPM, the Japanese module. We installed it, and bolted it back in, pretty much reversed the procedure, hooked the power back up, but this time it would be hooked up also with water. Another thing that we do is transfer oxygen from the shuttle to the station. And it's a procedure that you see CJ and Bob Thirsk working on. CJ's putting on his gloves. We never want to get any of the oils from our skin onto the connections with oxygen. We try and keep those connectors as clean as possible, free of debris, oils, anything that could cause a contaminant or actually could cause a fire. And the place where we took the MDS out of the space shuttle, we're going to put 2 lockers that come off of the ISS. There's Danny with one. They don't fit exactly the way that our shuttle lockers do, so previous to Danny bringing the locker in, I had installed 2 adapter plates that go in the back there to allow the bolts on the lockers to line up. It's always fun up on the shuttle order station when you get a chance to work with tools. We get some great training for in-flight maintenance down on the ground.
Here we have Danny doing the EMU transfer, and he's being guided from behind with Tim Copra. So they're transferring the EMU suits to the airlock on the International Space Station. We have a big day tomorrow, busy day, where Danny and Nicole will do the first EVA. You can see me there trying to get out of the way because it's a big package that Danny is transferring over, and it's a long translation path. And then once he gets to the airlock, he of course has to secure them, and then we spend a good part of the day prepping them for tomorrow's activity. And here we have Krister and Frank DeWin getting ready to open the MPLM hatch. And as you can see, Krister has been working all day in terms of getting it ready, pressurizing it, and opening it, and was very successful in doing so. Over here, you can see Danny and Nicole prepping the suits. As I mentioned earlier, we spent a great deal today, mostly them, prepping the suits for tomorrow's EVA. You can see Nicole making sure she has all her EVA tools and all her tethers and everything that she needs for tomorrow's activity.
Frank coming up from where we are working on the MPLM hatch, or rather node hatch first, and then an MPLM hatch, and then there's also a lot of leak checks and things. There's a couple of hours work actually before we can open the hatch. That's the thermal cover we're kind of removing, which was on the outside of the CBM.
Here you can see Krister removing the CPAs. These are the controllers for the bolts that bolted the MPLM to the space station after Kevin and Mike installed it. And there's Frank also helping out with that task.
Llegar a Marte, ¿qué dirías antes de pisar el planeta? Después tenía un pequeño paso para
Jose doing a KO event in Spanish, so we're able to reach out to an entirely new audience. That's really nice, I think.
Formular unas palabras para la primera persona que pise al planeta Marte. Creo que dejaría ese honor para la persona que en la actualidad pisa.
About a minute hours of work, we are finally ready to open the hatch to a temporary new module on the space station, Leonardo. And a bit funny, the 2 Europeans up here out of the 13-person crew who are working on this to get into the European-built Leonardo. Right now we're the last thing doing, putting up a cover so we won't get stuck in bolts and cables and things when we're late. We'll go through that hatch many times with a lot of transfer items coming from inside the MPLM. So here we are turning the handle very carefully, following the procedures. To be honest with you, we had a little bit of a problem there because it was harder than expected to get the hatch open. But after a few minutes hiccups, we finally managed to get it open. M&M, we are carrying up 6 racks, 3 for crew support on the space station. It's a crew quarter for one of the members here. There's a big treadmill, and there's also something called the atmosphere revitalization system to keep the air clean. And here, after, as I said, a little hiccup, we finally managed to open the hatch to the M&M. We have to have masks and goggles on in case there will be bad air or something floating around, but it was very pristine inside the M&M. Great groundwork from everyone at KC has prepared it. It looked very nice and clean. You can see there's full of bags and racks, which we during the next coming days, everything will be transferred over to the station, and then we'll fill up with other things which needs to go back to Earth with us. Here's an example of the first bags getting transferred one after another. This is a very efficient way to do it when we can line up a lot of people and hand it from one person to the next one. It's Jose here, relaying
Break
from
Discovery. Why don't you pause your narrative now?
Passing it on to Mike Barrett on the station. And they're trying to see, this is in the Japanese module. Jetpack waving there, and behind them you can see other crew members working on something. First transfer done, happy crew members floating out of the M&M hatch. And now we're looking forward to several days of transfer.
This is the NLP experiment that we had on, was activated on flight day 2. Now we're going to go ahead and terminate it. So a couple of my good pilot buddies looking on as we're doing some pilot science. Just turn that crank until the line meets, and then give it 4 shakes and put it back in the Ziploc bag. Final thing we had to do is a EVA tag up. Had the entire crew there. There's a lot of robotic support required for tomorrow's EVA, which will be done by Bob Thirsk and Kevin Ford. So they're getting all that briefing squared away. And then Pat is going to be the procedures IV, so he's going through the checklist and the overview to make sure everything's in good shape. Cam and Jose will be suiting up, and so it's an entire team effort here. Well, it was a great flight day 4 on orbit, Houston, and we just want to thank everybody for the great support from the ground, and we're looking forward to a great flight day 5 with EVA and a lot of good rack transfers. Thank you. Good night.